Hey everyone. In today's episode, I'm going to get into dual income properties. And when I say dual income, I'm talking about dual and multi-income properties. And look, the reason for today's episode is quite simple. I think they're quite misunderstood by a lot of people for why you buy them and various other things that you can get out of them and reasons you would actually buy them. And not only buy them, it's also people buy them thinking they're going to get a certain result out of it, but then they don't get it and they wonder why. So the reason I want to make today's episode is so I can articulate kind of what your pros and cons are with them and why you should buy them and who shouldn't buy them. So in today's episode, I'll get into a few things. First of all, the definitions of it. Secondly, the advantages and disadvantages with dual income properties. Thirdly, who should and shouldn't buy these properties. And then finally, the best regions to buy these in. So really, dual and multi-income properties are very simple to describe. They're just properties that have more than one income stream. Obviously, a dual income property is one with two. Multi is generally three or more. So you could have a tri-income stream, so that's three, and multi is just any more than two, really. So that's what they are. And they come in the form of a few different things. So the probably most common example is a house and granny flat. They might come in a house and studio format. It could be a house that's an original house that's done up as separate units. That is quite common in some areas and some different areas as well. So on top of that as well, you have things such as boarding houses and multi-living spaces houses. So if they're permitted or they're allowed in a certain council region, they are also something you would consider to be a multi-income property. Final one that's also quite common as well is unit blocks. So all of these are fairly common. You could probably add duplexes to this as well, but I guess you could just say that's houses as separate units because it is technically two separate places on one, but both sides of a duplex would be a multi-income property as well. Something that's misunderstood is often the advantage and disadvantages of these sorts of assets. So, look, first things first, I want to get into the advantages of these types of assets. So, look, the main one is that it has higher cash flow. So, obviously, a dual income property is going to lease for more than a single income property. Should be no surprises about that. That's pretty obvious, I think. Everyone should probably know that. Obviously, with that, you have more serviceability. So, with more serviceability, you could probably have a higher borrowing capacity and probably higher future borrowing as well. That's another thing. Generally, they are lower risk. And when I say generally, it's because obviously the higher cash flow, generally the lower the risk. But there is other elements that go with it, and you'll hear it in the disadvantages, but generally it is lower. Dual income properties are often on larger land lots because to get enough build space on there, you often need a larger land lot. They are a good advantage too is they are becoming more common for tenants. Shared spaces is becoming more common in Australia. Take it back 20 plus years ago, it wasn't a very common thing, but it is becoming more popular. Also, if this is probably an advantage to do or an advantage probably that might be a thing in the future, and they're relatively simple to do. So it's particular council regions, they're quite easy to do and you don't have too much hassle with doing it. So that's another thing. As well, they can be advantageous to build a portfolio. Now, that's not for everyone, but in a lot of circumstances, they can be. And I will get into a little bit more detail about it in the future, but best speak to your mortgage broker and accountant about that. But it's just going to be personal experience that I'll tell everyone about regarding the advantageous nature of them. Look, some clear disadvantages is that the most common one that people overlook is the resale price. So a lot of people will say, for example, it should go for double the amount of price because it's double the amount of income. And it just doesn't work like that with dual income properties at all. So you may get 1% higher, 1.5% higher yield. It does not necessarily mean you'll get double the purchase price. Purchase price, there is another one. Purchase price for dual income properties is generally more expensive. It's generally, within probably, I'd say 10 to 20% more expensive than the suburb median. So that's another thing. The big thing with when I say resale price is that it really only increases the build value of the actual asset. So I'll give you a good example. Granny flats themselves, if I was 5 years off retiring, I'd probably be a fan of them. But if you've got more than 10 years, I'm not a huge fan of them. It's simply because if your house is, let's say, worth $1 million and you put a $150,000 granny flat on it, for example, your actual value really after it's done is generally only somewhere between about probably 1.15 to 1.25. So it's not that much. Whereas if you were to subdivide it, yes, it costs more, but your capital value is so much higher. So yes, it's going to impact certain people more than others. But I mean, for me, it's unless you're getting close to a stabilization phase of your life and you need to, I don't like them for building portfolios. So that's one thing just to keep in mind. It can be difficult to get more lending. It's not always the case. But some lenders do not like dual income properties, do not like more than one dwelling on one title. So just keep that in mind. It is not for everyone. It is not all the lenders like it. So it will eliminate some of them, but not all of them. Can attract lower quality tenants. Generally, your best tenants will want a detached house in a good suburb, and they generally don't want to share with everyone. Lower quality tenants will accept this generally. High quality tenants generally will not. Some do. I'm not putting everyone in the same basket. But some do, but not as many as a detached house in good condition or good location as is single, should I say, person living on it or single family. Higher insurance premiums. Dual income properties, when you put that in an insurance calculation, the insurance premium will be somewhere generally between probably 8 to about 25% more expensive than a normal house. So just factor that into your net yield that you do when you're looking at purchasing a dual income property. Not a lot of people think of that, but you need to put that in there. So just do it. You can't really do it often online. You have to actually call them up. So just let them know that as well. An important thing is obviously advantage, disadvantages is one important thing, but an important question then is who should buy these? So first things first, those wanting to build long-term property portfolios. So the good thing about this is it doesn't barbecue too much of your cash flow. And because of that, I mean, you can often sometimes, if very lucky, get a very good total return. So long-term capital growth plus gross rental yield can be very good. And it'll support longer-term purchases. Trust and company buyers. So I'm sure everyone knows, but just speak to an accountant or broker about self-servicing entities. Dual income and multi-income properties are good for that. They do turn generally cash flow positive quicker, so they can help you exclude servicing and debt at the same time, which is very good. Long-term holder investors. So I don't recommend these for shorter-term holders, but longer-term is good because it does take care of you and it does lower the risk the longer you hold it, which is good. Extended families is another one. So people who want shared spaces with other family members, shared, should I say, locations, but want their own kind of, should I say, smaller part, they're really good for things like this as well. They are very, very good for this. I mean, I know plenty of people in Sydney, even in Sydney's eastern suburbs, who live in very, very expensive houses, and basically one of each of the kids and their families live on each level and the parents live on the other level. Like, I mean, they've pretty much won the golden lottery, the golden, Willy Wonka factory ticket, in my opinion, having, that in their life. But good on them. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them having that. So those sorts of dwellings are popular among extended families. It's only going to become more popular as assets become more expensive. Finally, the other ones that I'd say who are good to buy assets like this as well, I'd be saying those who want cash flow whilst owning a property. So you get these owner-occupiers even sometimes who, buy a house and they want to either Airbnb a second dwelling out, or they just want to lease it maybe to a close friend or family member who wants to get on their feet, or just have a little bit of income coming in whilst they're owning their property. And it helps them a little bit whilst they, get to live where they want to and that kind of thing. So that's another type of person that does suit a dual or multi-income property. People who want cash flow whilst owning properties. On the contrary, who shouldn't buy these? And the list is shorter, but quite important to know this. So first things first, short-term investors. Do not buy this, because if you're a short-term investor, I'm telling you right now, you'll pay a premium for the property. And if you want to either pull out equity, you will pay it does not necessarily a massive premium, but you'll pay a semi-premium for the property. And in 10 years, generally valuers will if you want to pull equity out, they'll value it closer to the median. And then secondly as well, the resale price it'll grow to the suburb median, but it won't do better than it generally. So that's just something you need to consider on these kinds of properties. Secondly, those who do not like sharing space, do not buy this if you're expecting either a tenant or yourself to share space with someone else, because the whole idea of a dual or multi-income dwelling is that a space is commonly shared. And now, it doesn't mean the dwelling is shared. It could mean the driveway is shared. It could mean the lawn is shared. It could mean the mailboxes, not necessarily are shared, but you have Unit 1 and Unit 2 right next to each other. And there will be cases where the postie drops it in the wrong mailbox. If you don't like that shit, don't buy this, because that will happen. I personally have this, and I'm telling you right now, this is exactly what happens in these sorts of properties. So don't buy it if that's you. Finally, time poor professionals. I'll put brackets in this to say people expecting no maintenance or no issues, set and forget kind of dual income properties. Dual income properties always have a little bit more maintenance than others. It's not a lot. It'll generally be within 10%. They will always have more maintenance than others. So if you're someone who doesn't want to have to do more in terms of reply to your property manager or fix things more, don't use a dual income property, because there will be cases where things will happen more regularly. So a good example might be your pipe work. It will become blocked more often than not because you've got two sets of people putting all the crap down it, going out to the main. Same as stormwater, there'll be more crap going towards the main. Same as even, for example, it might be very simple things such as the gate. There'll be more than one person going through it, so it's used more, therefore it wears more. So if you're someone who wants a complete set and forget kind of property, don't buy this stuff. I'm telling you, do not buy it right now, because it is exactly what you are going to get. It is more common than not that this will happen. But obviously there's a trade-off. You do get more income and you probably have a better cash flow. But if you're the person who doesn't want more to do not buy this asset. That's another person who shouldn't buy this sort of asset. Let's get into the best regions to buy dual and multi-income properties. And I'm going to start with a few different regions, but I'll get into the reasons why of each of them. And it has a lot to do with where they are in the market cycle, and also particularly, this is probably 50% of it, the council regions they're in and what you can do with the dwellings. So the first one by far, in my opinion, is the Central Coast of New South Wales. And the reason for this is because the council itself is actually quite development pro for these sorts of assets. There's plenty of homes there that are multi-unit dwellings, with a house and granny flat, house and studio, houses as multi-dwelling income properties as well. The council's very, very development pro. Similar to Newcastle, which is my second one, and Wollongong too, they both are as well. But the key difference between those three is that the Central Coast particularly has definitely dwellings with bigger land lots on them that suit multi-income dwellings a lot more than especially the Newcastle, and especially in a Wollongong. There's generally smaller lots, particularly in Newcastle, that make it quite hard to build a multi-income dwelling property on there. So council is the councils in both of them are development pro, but Central Coast is development pro, plus has the land to do it as well. And these properties as well, I actually find it a little bit easier to source them than in other locations, and they generally perform pretty well as well. So that's definitely my number one. As I said, Newcastle and Wollongong are number two. Newcastle will have more capital growth, just the ability to find one is a lot harder. Same as Wollongong, it is a bit more expensive as well, so the yield isn't as good. That's the other reason. And on top of that as well, not only that in Wollongong too, I'd say Shell Harbour is quite similar to the Central Coast, just the capital growth isn't as good. But they are pretty good. But because Wollongong's a bit more expensive, the yield isn't quite as good. It's probably just under Newcastle as well in terms of a dual or multi-income dwelling property, should I say. Sydney, I've got in brackets some parts. So Sydney does, because it's in New South Wales, allow developments in terms of house and granny house, studio, multi-dwelling properties quite easily. But it's some parts, because first things first, council regions in Sydney can be an absolute pain in the arse about this. I mean, if you look at some of the ones in inner Sydney, they are shocking to do anything with. They don't even let you, some of them, cut a tree down. I know even some that literally, have blocks of 3,000 metres squared, and they won't let you subdivide at all, because it's just the sort of way the council is. Now, it's very good to live in, but you don't want to be investing in a multi-income or dual income property in these locations, because you won't be able to do it. Whereas others are quite pro at it. But also the thing with Sydney as well to consider is that the price point is also something as well. So it's very hard in an expensive market to get like 4.5%+ yield, even on a multi-income property, because the price point is so high. So that's the thing with Sydney, is it's probably only about 3 or 4 council regions I'd even consider in Sydney of doing it. Just because of the way it kind of works and what you can do with the property. That's also, just consider that in Sydney. There are definitely some parts that are good. I've said these are the best regions to buy dual and multi-income properties, tier 1, and this is in the exact order I would do it in. And I say tier 1 because they are by far the best regions to buy, market cycle, council regions, and not only that, too, price points. I've also got other tier 1s I'd like to consider, but they're a little bit more difficult for dual income properties. And now, if you can find them, they're right up the top of the Central Coast and Newcastle, mind you, and that is both Melbourne and Geelong. Now, the reason Melbourne and Geelong are still good is because recently, as only started this year, secondary dwellings that meet performance requirements under DAs and CDCs in Victoria are actually doable. Now, the reason I said they're more difficult is because New South Wales has had, I'd say, and parts of Queensland as well, mind you, have had probably 15 to 20 years worth of secondary dwellings and legislation being built up, and to get them through faster, already developed with what's going on. Whereas Melbourne, Geelong, and the Victorian state, it's only a really kind of a new thing that's going on. It's only kind of been in the last year, and ones that meet very specific performance requirements, a couple of years. It's not very common down there. So the legislation isn't as well developed kind of down here as others. But Melbourne's probably a little bit better than Geelong, because Melbourne, you do find them a little bit more often, and you do find that ones that will meet, should I say, CDC requirements more often as well. Geelong, you don't really find. Geelong is very villagey. A lot of the suburbs I buy in, it's quite hard to find them down there. I have found them before, but it's very rare. In saying that as well, both Melbourne and Geelong, just consider, if you are doing this, there won't be many that will have, should I say, separate meterages, so it might be something that you'd want to add in. Now, to add separate water, electricity, and gas, you're looking at probably around the $10,000 mark per unit. So just keep that in mind. I have picked up ones that have already this stuff, but they're exceptionally rare. They're very hard to find. So they are great locations to buy in here. They're just not as well developed as somewhere like New South Wales or Queensland, particularly New South Wales, because they are definitely a new thing in both Melbourne and Geelong. But I mean, still very good locations to consider for dual and multi-income properties. Just a little bit harder to find. That's the reason I'd say they're tier 1, but more difficult. Look, tier 2 locations I've got here in this exact order. I've got Hobart, Brisbane, then Perth. The reason Hobart's there is because Hobart really, I mean, it's just in its stabilisation phase, should I say. It's not an area that I think will, go down really much in the next couple of years. It'll probably pick up in the next 5 to 10 quite significantly. But it's probably going to stabilise a bit. But Hobart, you do find these kinds of dwellings. Councils are generally pretty, I'd say, okay with it up there. They're not very pro, they're not very against it. I'd say reasonable about it. So Hobart's good for that. And it's not that risky of a market to buy in. Brisbane I've got under Hobart. It's not because it's hard to do or anything like that. Moreton Bay in particular council is actually very easy to do these kinds of things on. It's been quite well developed there. Brisbane's only just kind of really in the last 5 or so years started to get into it, these sorts of dwellings. But the reason Brisbane's down there is because it's definitely getting frothy towards the back of its market cycle. And it isn't as easy as New South Wales still to do it. Moreton Bay is, but Brisbane isn't, and it's also getting frothy in the market cycle. So that's why it's there. Perth is the number 3 one in the tier 2 section I've got there, and simply because Perth is obviously very frothy in terms of where it is in its market cycle. So, I mean, I'm expecting Perth, I think it's within its winner's curse phase of the market cycle. So, I mean, that's why it's there. And there are people that put granny flats in Perth, multi-dwelling income dwellings in Perth. It is common. A lot of dwellings on also larger blocks that you can do it. The only thing I'd say is because there's a lot of land around Perth, and it still does cost quite a bit in Perth too, there's not that many buyers also that want to buy these sorts of dwellings in Perth either, because it's a younger city and it's a lot more of a developing kind of, it is a major city, but it's still more developing than probably our East Coast counterparts. So that's something about Perth as well. And the resale value really isn't there in Perth, whereas in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, it kind of is. So it's not kind of is, it is, to be honest. But Perth, it's not. You don't see it very often. So you have a very much so shrinking buyer pool in a market that's very much so towards its winner's curse phase of the market. So that's why it's the bottom of tier 2 that I've got it there. But look, for people that want to really know more about dual income properties and multi-income properties and want to buy one, I suggest you reach out to someone like me. I tell you why, because the average person does not know how to buy this. I'm not going to say this not going to say how to buy this to get both income, should I say higher cash flow and capital growth, because I know exactly how to do this. That I've not met a single, no, actually I have. I met one other person who actually works with me now who knows how to do it in the right way. But to be able to source these is very hard, and to be able to actually get it for the right price is also very hard, because there's a few key things that you have to do to be able to get this right. And you might only find a couple a year that are actually available like this in the location you want to buy and have all the right things about them. It's very rare. I've actually got one available right now, believe it or not. One literally available right now that you can do this and it'll work perfectly well. So look, if that's you, it is the end of this episode. But look, if that's you and you're looking to buy something like this, like a dual income property and something that's going to perform well on both a cash flow and capital growth perspective, look, please reach out to me via www.compoundinvest.com.au/inquire. Look, even if you're someone who is looking for a single dwelling in a good capital growth location and just a good property in general, reach out as well and you're serious. What happens here is you book basically a time slot in with me. It blocks out both mine and your calendars, whereby we literally have a phone call for 30 minutes. I give you a call and we discuss what you're looking to do and what you're seeking to achieve. I'll give you some options and we'll formulate basically what we do from there, a proper strategy. Now, even if you're not serious right now, or you're someone, for example, who might have, be single on the fence about buyer's agents or just getting the market, I still strongly suggest you reach out, because I'm telling you right now, in our phone call, you'll understand how passionate I am about this, and you'll also understand how much I know about this stuff. And I'm someone who walks the walk and talks the talk. So about this stuff, I own these kinds of things, okay? So I know what to buy in these in terms of this. I know how to build a portfolio. I know what to buy for the right person. I know how to get financing for it. I know the lot. I could tell you second and third tier lenders even who let you buy it in trust trading companies and that kind of thing, because I've had to go through it myself. So I know this kind of stuff. So again, if you're someone seriously wants to have a chat, or you're someone who just wants to have a chat and sit on the fence, www.compoundinvest.com.au/inquire. Look, I thank everyone again for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. And if you had a lot of fun watching this episode, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks again.